Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of MTG Arena Run's Top 10. And in light of all the new cards we're getting from Modern Horizons 2 and getting lots and lots of keywords coming back, I decided let's go the opposite direction. Let's take a look at the top 10 least used keywords. So we are getting a lot of keywords coming back. We are getting Evoke back, we are getting some amount of Flashback back. Note that delirium is an ability word, not a keyword, so that's one caveat I'm going to use. We're only limiting it to keyword actions and keyword abilities. We're not using ability words like landfall or delirium, or the ones where it's a condition set, but what the effect happens is going to be very different. So we won't be getting delirium here. Actually, we probably, even without counting Modern Horizons, we won't be getting that anyway, because that's actually still being used in double digits. So there are going to be a few caveats here, and all of them are conveniently placed in the not quite there. So first off, we're excluding mechanics that appeared only on Future Sight, and that's because they simply fire off as just one-offs. So the one-offs I'm mentioning here are Absorb, which probably is way too powerful. We kind of have a variant on that. It's in the Valkmira Shield side of Rien. Especially if you play like a cycling deck or a deck that goes wide, having all sources of damage reduced by one, really backbreaking. And also it complicates the math that to the point where they've decided in development that there is no way they're using Absorb with any value higher than 1. So but we'll talk about that. Aura Swap, they've been talking about it probably coming back, but they still haven't quite found the set for it to work. They tried to get it to work in Teros, no dice. I'm actually grateful for that because Bestow is a lot better. Fortify on Darksteel Garrison, basically it's equipment for lands. Very interesting. I actually would have thought we would see it in somewhere like, say, Tarkir or whatnot, but no dice either. Actually, this one's probably the hardest to fit in. We're probably never going to see this one run through. Gravestorm, this one's a variant on Storm. We're not going to treat variants separately, but otherwise Gravestorm, very hard to balance. Even this one is a one-off card when all it does is just remove one card from the game. Could still be broken enough, so no thank you. And Transfigure, this one kind of like Transmute, except it's a creature that searches for another creature. With all the ETB creatures we have nowadays, we're probably not going to see Transfigure much, if at all. This one I kind of enjoyed back in the day, but I don't have any hopes that that's going to come up. And there are a few cards that are two ofs in Future Sight. So, namely Snake Cult Initiation and Spin into Myth. So, the reason it's a 2-of is because there happens to be a sliver that goes along with it. So Poisonous, we probably are not gonna. They actually said that there is a good chance that they might bring Poisonous back. If only because Infect was probably way too good. So but then again, Poisonous might be on the way too bad. So we probably will not be seeing low numbers like Virulent Sliver. Although this did win a Pro Tour. And that's a very long story in itself. It's a two-headed giant draft Pro Tour. So basically, the duo that won this pretty much just drafted Slivers. They beat a lot of pros along the way, and it was super high value. They pretty much drafted that all the way to the finals. I think they only did one draft where they did not draft Slivers, and they lost several of the games on that one. But thankfully, in that kind of Pro Tour draft, you draft with 7 other. In this case, you draft with 3 other pairs. You have 3 matches. Then it just rotates on 3 matches or 2 matches. I'm not too sure. Also, then you have Fate Seal, which is Scry on opponent, and this one is deemed to be very, very way too good. We see a variant of this in Jace the Mind Sculptor where you can either do it to yourself or do it to your opponent. And the do it to your opponent part it was probably very strong, so we probably will not see it in very high amounts. At most, it's probably a Fate Seal 1 if ever. But even then, like Spin into mid, that one just pretty much makes it a hard removal because you just dump it into the bottom of the library, never to be seen again. Also of note, we're going to be excluding some of the mechanics that appeared in Commander. Well, at least the ones that just appeared as a cycle of 5 off. So demonstrate this one's from the recent Strixhaven Commander set where you cast, you may copy, then you can choose an opponent to also copy. So that one is a cycle of 5. There's also a cycle of 5 from Undaunted, where it just costs 1 less for each opponent. Interesting, but I did not exclude every one that just appeared in Commander. There's one that we'll see later, but these ones didn't quite make it. Then everything else pretty much very high in numbers, but we're ready to proceed. So first off, not in Commander, but in Conspiracy Take the Crown, this is melee. So this one is really pushing on this one's really pushing on the multiplayer aspect. In fact, it also pushes on the free for all aspect here. So whenever this creature attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each opponent you attacked with a creature this combat. So at worst, it's essentially I attack, it gets +1/+1. So for example, Adriana, Captain of the Guard, attack an opponent, it's gonna be at least a 5/5. But if there are more opponents and you can split the attacks around, it can get really big. So that so that one's actually quite interesting. We might actually get a chance to see this again, but I will note that this is only just the second version of Conspiracy. Conspiracy is quite popular. We might end up seeing it again, but it's unlikely that we're going to see that much in terms of returning mechanics. As far as if I'm not mistaken, the only actual returning mechanic was Will of the Council. Basically, it's about the voting matters. So a lot of since they're really pushing multiplayer there, melee may not get so much. Dethrone does not get that much either in that sense. So but that's number 10. Melee is actually quite low on the list here. So here's something that actually showed up in a proper release, although it's Cold Snap, and this one does have a lot of developmental problems. So this is Recover. It's a weird hybrid of old mechanics and new mechanics. So there's pretty much an old mechanic where it checks if something gets put on the order of your graveyards. This one doesn't exactly quite do that, but it does have a slight nod to it with its Recover condition. So if this is in your graveyard and a creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay the Recover cost, and if you do, this goes back to your hand. Otherwise, it's exiled. So as you can see here, the Recover costs usually require you to have a set amount of mana on hand. So it makes it kind of weird. It's also hard to make it in a control setting because in control you want to have quality creatures, but you only want to have a few of them. And leaving the mana up to recover a card or leaving the mana up to actually cast something makes it kind of difficult also. And that said, the only one with an actual flexible recover cost is the showcase is the rare Garza's Assassin. It's not showcase, it's just a regular rare. But paying half your life just to get a creature that you have to sacrifice to destroy a non-black creature, well, I get the idea of the sacrifice. It's a good way to trigger recover, but I'm not too convinced this kind of mechanic is going to come back. Also, you have to remember that design and development is usually not happy with cards that have a chance of constantly repeating. So, and they're very shy with that one. So Recover's really low on this list. In fact, I can argue that Melee has a better chance of coming back over Recover. But there you go. That's number 9. That's not gonna recover. Number 8. This one's actually the new kid on the block. This is Ward. Oddly enough, there are a few other creatures that have an ability similar to this. Of note would be Frost Titan, but they haven't keyworded that ability yet. Normally, there's a chance that they would retroactively keyword it, but they haven't done so yet. So whether they actually do or not remains a mystery. But Ward is still actually kind of low. Only the 7 instances you see here. But this is one that is really gonna skyrocket up in use over time. Basically, Ward is, I would say it's less painful hexproof. You could still make the mistake of actually casting into this, so that there is that caveat there. But even the few cards that have Ward, the Torrent Sculptor being the most relevant one now, though Sedgemoor Witch is also doing a good job as well. Now, they're showing that the different versions of Ward are actually quite fine. In fact, I want some poo-pooed Owl and Shield Mage a bit, but there are times when your opponent just can't afford to pay the 3 life, so that's actually a very good representative of that. Nice Punisher mechanic. Well, it's not Punisher. Yeah, I guess it's a Punisher style mechanic. And we're gonna see a lot more of this. So that's number 8, Ward. Number 7. Now this one is from a commander's. This one is from a commander set. This is Myriad. We get a lot of questions about Myriad on the Ask the Judge Facebook page. But the idea here is whenever the creature with Myriad attacks, for each opponent other than the defending player, create a token that's a copy that's tapped and attacking that player or planeswalker they control. Then the tokens get exiled. So more often than not, it's usually just the Blade of Cells because the actual Myriad creatures are fine, but not exciting. They have been reprinted a few times in other commander sets in differing values, but otherwise, it's really just the Blade of Cells that's the highlight here. Again, because this is a commander, in a sense, it does get reprinted quite a bit, but we haven't seen much in the way of new cards with Myriad. It does highlight the point that between Myriad, Demonstrate, Undaunted, we have a lot of keywords that just get burned for one commander set and are never used again. So we're kind of the cards get reprinted, but we don't see new cards. So we're kind of hoping that the trend gets bucked one way or another. That's number 7, Myriad. Speaking of Myriad, number 6. This one's also another special from Cold Snap. This one is Ripple. Now, all the cards here seem to be hard-coded into Ripple 4. So what happens is, when you play a spell with Ripple, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may any cards with the same name. You may cast them without paying the mana cost. And since there's no restriction on Ripple that way, you can continue to Ripple again. So if you've seen some recent episodes from MTG Goldfish, you might have seen the Dragon's Approach deck. So that one you can have any number of copies of Dragon's Approach, running along with 2 Trumming Stones. So the idea is that you could ripple into more Dragon's Approaches. Now this one is very, very good in limited, although I would say the best ones were the red one is very good. The white one and the blue one can be backbreaking. It's because it essentially resets the board quite a bit. The green one not so much, although even if it's an aura, because everyone did not like auras that much. And the black one, yeah. But essentially, the white, blue, and red ones were really good for limited, especially if you could, because the draft was pretty much triple Cold Snap. so you just drafted as many of these commons as you could. But that said, again, it runs into it shows little to no hope in constructed, and pretty much if you wanted it constructed, it's pretty much you only want the Trumming Stone. You don't really want the other cards. So another cold snap mechanic, another one that's probably not gonna see much. We're not gonna see much again. Maybe Wizards prints a Ripple with a card you can have multiple copies of, which is probably the worst idea that they could do. Let's hope it doesn't happen. Anyway, that's number 6, Ripple. And number 5, we have Hideaway. Originally, this was just a set of 5, and these were all the rare Hideaway lands from Lorwyn. So what Hideaway does is, when the permanent enters the battlefield tapped, and when it does, you look at the top 4 cards. You can exile one of them face down and put the rest in the bottom of your library. And usually there's a way to benefit from that exiled card. Like in the case of the Lorwyn lands, it had an activated ability that if you met the conditions, you can cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. The white one usually gets reprinted. The white one and the green one usually gets reprinted in commander sets. The blue one is usually an all-star in Legacy Cube. Then we actually have one more card from this, thanks to Modern Horizons, in the form of Watcher for Tomorrow, and doesn't give it away. No way to cast it from exile, but it does use Ugin tech, at least the War of the Spark Ugin, where the exiled card goes to the owner's hand. So still pretty decent, I guess. I actually do like the idea of Hideaway. I would like to see more Hideaway cards in the future, though it is a significant amount of card advantage, so the costing will have to be really aggressive in one form or another. But I do like this, especially in supplemental sets, and I think Modern can handle this. That's number 5, Hideaway. Now we're getting to the cards where like only 5 offs and even fewer. So next, number 4. This one is from Saviors of Kamigawa. Well, probably the one set that I know that has a lot of unused mechanics. And this is one of them. So this is the offering mechanic. So these are legendary creatures, but they have an extra ability that you can cast this as an instant. So kind of built-in flash if you sacrifice a creature of the subtype in question. So for example, Patron of the Nezumi. So basically, if you sacrifice a rat, you can cast it as an instant. And let's say I sacrificed a Burglar Rat, which is 1 and a black. The cost I need to pay now would just be 7 or 5 black minus 1 and a black. So that's 4 and 1 black. So I only need to pay 5. And there are some that are larger, but here in particular in Kamigawa, there aren't that many high-priced ones, so usually you are still paying quite a bit. You can only sacrifice 1 permanent this way, but it was interesting in a sense. Unfortunately, it was a cycle that was used only in the rares, and it also so happened that all of them were not great. Patron of the Nezumi was reprinted in a commander set. It is probably a little bit better than the others, but very hard to suggest. Although I would say that the Patron of the Aki, the Goblin Offering one, I guess if you have a Moxas lying around that's not doing anything, you could sacrifice that. Nah. Essentially, that's what one of the problems we see. Actually, we can say that a lot of the mechanics and Saviors of Kamigawa, suffice to say, they did not really make the cut. In fact, another mechanic, Channel, also did not get reprinted. Essentially, it's just an ability word where you can discard it at a cost. So it kind of felt like cycling without the draw card part. And there is one more mechanic at number 3. Oh, sorry, I take it back. Number 4, the offering set, that was from Betrayers of Kamigawa. This one's definitely from Saviors of Kamigawa. So at least Betrayers of Kamigawa had ninjutsu as a good mechanic to come back. Saviors did not have much. So here we have the epic mechanic. You cast this one big spell, and it's the last spell you'll ever cast. And in fact, based on the way it's played for the rest of the game, you can't play spells. Even if I had something like an Isochron Scepter, well, particular Isochron Scepter, I would not be able to cast anything off that either. So there are some ways to circumvent it, but for the most part, you're relying on this spell because this spell will keep firing every upkeep. And that's also another knock against this because you cast this spell, you can't do anything else. You only benefit from it this one time and every upkeep afterwards. So the worst case scenario is you got the effect, and if it doesn't save you, you're probably dead. That said, the only good one here was Enduring Ideal. There was a combo back in the day. You basically just ramped up to Enduring Ideal. You can assemble a lock very easily. And oh yeah, speaking of which, I think Solitary Confinement is coming to Modern, so that's also another card in the Enduring Ideal combo. So that's something to take note. But the price is way too high. If you were to reprint this now, what kind of at what cost would the spell be, and at what effect would it be? Because it's a serious balancing effect, and most of the time the perception is usually very bad. Like, I get this and I don't get to do anything else. So that's kind of why we've never seen Epic ever again. So that was more of an Epic fail. But that's number 3, Epic. And number 2, this one actually quite popular, but we don't see it much because of logistical reasons and printing reasons. Although I kind of hope that we get to see this again. So this is the meld mechanic. It technically appears on only 3 cards, though you also need 3 other cards. So how you count that is a bit of a weird one. But we literally have only 3 meld pairs, and they're all from Eldritch Moon. Oh yeah, speaking of which, the offering mechanic probably not going to show up also because because we got Escalate from Eldritch Moon, and that one's probably better. Anyway, so what does meld do? So basically you do an impersonation of Pineapple Pen. You get one card, you get another card. When the conditions meet, they meld together, and you put them together, and you get a big card. Usually, it's a combination of It's usually the power toughness gets melded together, the effects get melded together. Although Handwear, the Riding Township, very very interesting. Most people will often just go for the big Brisella. No one really talks about Chittering Host, sadly, but I would not mind seeing this again. Though the knock against this is, let's say in limited, you're gonna be actively drafting for this, and more often than not, you're only gonna get 1 out of 2. Although there might be some consideration about using Augment and Host, a technology from Unstable, to see if they can make something work with this. A little bit hard to say, but I would not be surprised if we see a variant of Meld in the future that is basically just Host Augment. But until then, Meld is going to be on the short stick. But then you're asking me, this one has probably the fewest. The only fewer ones are basically the ones in Future Sight. So what actually is the least used keyword? Frenzy. Hey, what the heck? This is a Future Sight card, you're probably saying. Yes, but it did get reprinted but it did get used in another card. Or should I say it did get used in kind of 1 out of 4 variations of another card. So first, Frenzy 1, so it gets, if it attacks and it's not blocked, it gets that amount in power until end of turn. So very good attacking mechanic. Shows up in variant A of Garbage Elemental. So this one is, kind of a bit cheating because it shows up in Unstable, but heck, it does qualify, and it is fewer than Meld. So this is literally the least used one. But ironically, Frenzy probably has more hope of being used. Now, that said, ever since, we do have mechanics like Battle Cry, which which kind of count it, though it does trigger for others instead. But I don't see how bad Frenzy is. It's more This one's probably one of the more possible keyword mechanics to come back. That said, my personal favorite for number one is still Meld, but this one's an odd way to trap people if you say non-future sight only, because we got this unstable, and to be honest, 1.25 is still fewer than 2. So that's it for this. Top 10. If you like what you saw, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, turn on notifications and whatnot. Are there any other mechanics that are so unused that you would like to see again, or you would like to see reworked somehow? That anything that you remember, let me know in the comments. Let's talk about this. Until then, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you guys again next time. Take care. God bless. Stay safe wherever you are. Have a great week, everyone. Take care.